Hey, welcome to the second live stream for the Axiom Chronicles. I am Luke Boland, the executive producer, writer of Axiom Chronicles. I'm joined with Dylan, who's off screen.
Hey, how's it going?
Sean is off screen as well. Sorry, we're waiting on. I have a little technical difficulties right now. We're waiting on a camera to come up here, but for right now, it's me, and I'm going to kind of open this up. Dylan is art director, producer, slash writer, creator, all these things. Sean is director, editor, writer as well. Coben is not with us tonight. Coben Arudish, she got sick last minute and could not make it. Coben is producer, writer, creator as well. He will be missed tonight for sure. But we are so excited to tell you more about the Axiom Chronicles and to share some of our inspirations and dive into what the characters and the world of Axiom is really about. We'll answer questions at the end, so feel free to stick around. Leave your questions in the comment in the chat. We'd love to hear from you guys. And then this is your first time hearing about the series. We're going to talk a little bit about that. There's a brief overview of like what Axiom is. Because we don't have three cameras, I'm going to kind of just take a stab and do this. Yeah, because usually this is like, okay, I'm going to send it over to you guys. But because we have one camera, I'm going to do that. So Axiom Chronicles is a sci-fi animated action adventure series about a teen boy named Drake who was chosen by a cosmic power to save his people and the planet from an evil force of robots called the Mechno-hive. And it's a super cool animated sci-fi thing that we've been working on for a long time. It takes place on this desert planet, which we're going to talk about today. And these characters will be totally influenced. And when we get to the wide angle, you're going to see toys on the desk here, inspiration that we've drawn from over the years. But for now, to kick this off, we really want to show you a trailer that we've been working on that we just released this last week. And so we're super excited for you to watch this. And just a little teaser, we actually have another finished piece of animation we're going to show you later on. And it kind of talks about the world and unpacks that a little bit so you can kind of see the history and where this whole thing takes place. It's just really cool. So for now, though, let's kick it off with a trailer of that we've been working on.
I know what you're thinking. This doesn't look like it's going to end well. And you know what? You might be right. But I've been through a lot worse. Well, maybe not this bad, but still pretty bad. My name is Rake. As a baby, the Mechno-hive took me from my parents. I was raised in Power City by the cyborgs. They manipulated me into their own image, trained me as a weapon. They made me do terrible things. Eventually, I was ordered to gather organics to populate the Mechno-hive's labor camps. Everything changed when I watched a driver bot tear a baby from its mother's arms, and then turn its whip on her. Awakening a voice inside me I'd never heard before. That voice told me to defend them. All of them. In that moment, I broke every rule I was taught to obey. I knew the hive would come after me, so I ran. They hunted me, but I made it out. It's been a crazy ride to get to this point. I've made great friends, I found my family, and most importantly, I've been called to my true purpose. If you told the old me that it would be my job to free the organics and save the planet, I would have laughed in your face and probably arrested you. But now I know it has always been my fate.
So there we go. All right, we got camera up. We're working on mics next, guys. So for now, I'm going to keep talking.
We're back.
Yeah. To kind of introduce this thing, we got to talk about where we're at with this whole process, which is the testing the waters phase. And you might be asking, what's that? We're super passionate about this project, but we can't do it without your support. We have partnered with Angel Studios, and we're gauging interest in this project. So if this is a show that you would like to be made, you can express interest by going to angel.com/Axiom.
It's a tame one for the first time. It's tame.
That's good. We'll get there. I'm working my way up.
Yeah.
This will allow us to see if people are interested in helping us fund this show. If we were to open a crowdfund, many films and series like The Chosen, The Wingfeather Saga, or The Sound of Freedom started this way. If you feel the time is right and the interest is there, we'll open up to crowdfunding rounds so you can invest in this project and actually own equity stock in this project, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. So express interest now and be the first to know if we open a crowdfund. Again, that's angel.com/Axiom.
Sweet.
So yeah, Garrett, would it be best if I use the mic on my laptop? I'm just going to be kind of open about that. If we all want to talk, okay. So to start off with, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about some of our inspirations that we've had over the years. And kind of where this whole thing kind of started in terms of, how we grew up and the things that really inspired us. And obviously Dylan's going to speak a lot into this today because this came from his left hand, as we like to say. He's left-handed. So, but anyway, I don't know, Garrett, if you have those clips from Samurai Jack and Clone Wars, but those are two big inspirations here.
Good starting point for sure.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of that stuff?
Sure, yeah. I always say this. I mean, every time anyone's come up to us and, has been like, this is great, this looks amazing, this is, familiar, but kind of interesting and unique at the same time and all this stuff. And it looks like Star Wars and it looks like Samurai Jack. I'm always like, well, this is 100% my love letter to Samurai Jack for sure. Like that's my shorthand answer for a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's, I grew up in the early 2000s watching things like Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Powerpuff Girls, Clone Wars, like the 2003, before the 3D one. That might date myself a little bit. But yeah, like seeing those, the shape language and all of the, these very sharp and interesting hard lines to these characters that, we don't really see much anymore. It's, again, we've been to a few different places in California and stuff like that with Axiom, and it's across the board. It's always been like, wow, this looks different in a good way. Yeah. But yeah, that's like I would say 100% the genesis of the style and the looks. And so
Yeah, what you're seeing here is Clone Wars, Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars,
Yeah.
that came out in the early 2000s. Just we reference this scene in particular all the time when we're talking about action sequences and whatnot.
Yeah.
And how much we admire his work and whatnot.
For like how short those little clips are. I mean, I think they're like maybe a 3-minute long, episodes if you were mini episodes, but those are like seriously like master classes and very effective storytelling in a very small amount of time, which is kind of rad.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
good reference points.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I love it. So I think honestly, we just want to hear from you guys too later on with the questions. Like, what were some of your inspirations growing up? Like, what cartoons do you remember so vividly as that like made an impact on you? And I think that would be really cool to hear from you guys. But that's later on. Just kind of remember that, and when we come back around to the questions, we'd love to hear from you guys and hear what shows made an impact on you. Sean's like our like connoisseur. Sean and Coben, actually, both of them are about like obscure 80s cartoons.
Yeah.
And Sean has a gift to like remember the theme songs from them, like almost like
it's
word
really,
for
really
word.
gross. It's kind of disgusting. What's the one that I love so much is Bionic 6. It's like it's like a family of like a bionic robot family, and they're like all adopted. But then there's also like Dino Saucers, which is a great, amazing song.
I don't remember that. There's a show called Dino Saucers.
Dino Saucers.
Oh, he knows the name song.
Like it's really, really strange. Like there's dinosaurs that came from space and they gave like all these like teenagers rings.
Of course.
And I mean, it's obviously like what 80s cartoons are all about, but those are definitely the inspiration that we draw from in terms of the Axiom Chronicles. But who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I love it.
It's weird. But should we address like Coben being missing? Like,
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, like
do a little thing. But.
I mean,
he is feeling completely under the weather.
Yeah.
Like
Coben
this
has
guy,
COVID. It's
He
not a good
is.
thing.
He is just the antithesis of like what we all kind of sort of glean from in terms of storytelling, but that dude is feeling completely under the weather. So that's where he's at right now. He is lone parent right now.
That too.
Yeah. And so like all this kind of like culminated into this crazy moment of his wife left to go overseas, and he like felt super under the weather. But this guy would do us completely, like he would just blow us out of the water in terms of talking about characters.
I know, he really would. Like that said, we're going to do our darndest tonight to tell the story and make it awesome. We're going to put on our Coben hats and explain to you the characters and world of Axiom.
Totally.
First off, we want to talk about our heroes, our good guys. And this is our lineup right here. We've got Doombot and Sparky. We have, this isn't just covering up the next name, but I think it's Rake. Yes, of course, there's Rake. And then there's Stria and Screw Loose Joe. And this is our cast of heroes for season 1. And we are excited to tell you guys about these guys. To kick it off, I think we need to start with our main protagonist.
Dude. Yeah, right.
So, Coben, why don't you start with Rake?
Sure. Dylan.
Sorry, Dylan.
He's already missed. It's fine. It's fine. I'll do my best. So Rake is our he's our young protagonist. He starts off in a kind of a darker place. Kind of our commentary on the anti-hero, coming from my anti-hero back to just hero, which is kind of an interesting, we thought anyways, an interesting take on that kind of stereotype. But so he's our main guy. Starts out kind of thinking more along the lines of the Hive, and through some events throughout the first few episodes, he kind of sees a different way and is reached out to or spoken to by the Axiom which is, as you find out, a little more special than most characters in this show. So kind of giving him this, little bit of a chosen one arc. But yeah, he's also coming back and learning what is life outside of the Mechno-hive, and out of the that grip of evil, if you will.
Yep.
So yeah,
I think to add to that, I mean, Rake he's truly trying to discover who he is in this first season.
right.
Raised in this world of the Mechno-hive, which we're going to get into and talk more about in a few minutes here. But this struggle of doing the right thing, doing what he's called to do, his destiny, if you will. And it's hard to for him to get to that place because he's been conditioned his whole life to believe and think a certain way, right?
Totally, yeah, opposite, kind of thing. And
I think the thing that I've always liked about Rake in all of this is that there is definitely the things that he's been conditioned to believe and think about versus the things that he knows to be true.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so he's grown up in this is how it is, and then seeing how it actually is behind the scenes.
Right.
That kind of gives him this is wrong.
Yeah.
But there's so much, and I definitely feel like it helped us a lot in terms of storytelling to parallel it with Moses and the Prince of Egypt, to where it's there's that point where he's this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's when he kind of becomes okay, you're the architect in terms of the Prince of Egypt. He's down there and he's in the depths and he's amongst the slaves, where he kind of is oh gosh, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting to me, because you have a character that is kind of brought up in this way of thinking, and then he actually sees it firsthand.
Sure.
And is this is wrong.
Right.
Which makes Rake's journey really, really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because he's not just
a one-note person.
Yes, super goody two shoes,
Right,
or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think, I mean, honestly, for me, to take a step back, I know last time we talked about kind of how we all met and got started with this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Rake was the first character that I saw that Dylan had drawn. And I mean, I'm sure you drew all sorts of different things before that and whatnot, but Rake was that character. I was like, man, this guy is cool. This guy is really cool. And I want to know more about this story and this character. And so
it's always been about the question I was asked the most when, someone saw Rake first anyways. They were like, what's going on with his leg? What's the story?
Mm-hmm.
It immediately gives you, or the viewer, anyone looking at it, okay, what's going on there? Obviously something happened to this kid. What happened? And forever I would just be like, you'll have to find out.
Yeah.
I was real mysterious about it. In the back half, I'm like, okay, what did happen?
Yeah, what did happen to him? Right.
Good, because that's what everyone is asking about.
Well, the cool thing is, now we know.
And now we do. We do have a very...
You'll find out soon enough.
Yeah.
So.
Very cool way of how that goes about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, a hero needs a sidekick. And in our case, our hero has 1.5 sidekicks. So
I like that.
It's Doombot and Sparky. And Doombot and Sparky are kind of one and the same. There's a little illustration of them here. This is a little bit dated, but that's Doombot and Sparky. Oh, yeah, you guys pulled up there. Doombot and Sparky right there. Yeah, look at those guys.
Yeah.
So they're kind of one and the same.
Yeah.
Coben's really adamant about this. He's like they're the same thing. They're
not two separate.
They're not two separate things. They're together because Sparky is kind of the service bot for Doombot.
Yeah.
But Doombot needs Sparky desperately beyond just that, and Sparky needs Doombot too. So this is they're kind of our Laurel and Hardy, right? They're our comedy duo.
Yep.
We got a lot of funny moments with just the two of these guys alone.
Mm-hmm.
Doombot doesn't really talk. He's talk, but his talks are blips and bloops, and and Sparky's kind of
We actually
our
have
linguist, if you will.
right,
Yeah.
right, which is a kind of a funny dynamic because they're always bickering. They're always,
Yeah.
you know, if one's doing one thing, the other is, you know, picking at them, and
Yeah.
when they're not looking, and it's kind of, you know, almost. I'm trying to think.
It's kind of like C-3PO and R2.
A little
honestly.
bit,
like,
yeah.
but it's a little bit reversed.
A little bit.
We
yeah.
hate bringing up that analogy too
Well,
much because
sure,
it's like,
sure.
there's two robots. Yeah.
It's an easy one.
Yeah. But yeah, why don't you talk more about it?
No, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, they are totally, you know, where we start in our story is a little heavy, but quickly, you know, by, you know, mid episode 2 or so, or end of episode 2 maybe, we quickly get shot into an entirely new world with Rake, and we are, you know, the first people, not really, first beings he meets are these 2 robots who, you know, up until this point are the enemy, or they're not great even in Rake's eyes, who is a part of the Mechno-hive. He realizes these 2 robots are not. So what's that about? And they are, you know, they quickly are this mumbling kind of comedic duo that teach him a different way of life. Like, there's some levity in this place that seems pretty, you know, pretty dire.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're very much the funny, and Rake's kind of the straight man, or he doesn't get the joke ever, or he's the butt of the joke. He doesn't even get it because he's more robotic than these 2 robots, which is our,
exactly.
you know,
that's
kind of the
because
point.
he's been raised by robots, right?
Right.
So,
which I really like, because I think in terms of the story, most of Rake's interaction up until this point with the robots has been very like, this is how it is. It's very robotic, and it's
digital. It's not analog.
Yes, and with Dunebot and Sparky, there's a little bit of like, because of their separation from it a little bit, there's a little bit of like them kind of being more, there's a humanistic element to them. And so it's really strange for him, because he's been taught this way like for so long, and then when he meets these guys, they're very, they emote, they like with feelings and emotions, stuff like that. So like, which is crazy to me. Like I kind of love that. They're almost, there's a sense of like them teaching Rake humanity. In a sense, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, because they're not part of the hive, which I know makes no sense to you guys right now, but we're going to get into that very quickly.
Yeah.
So, yes. Let's talk about the next character, Stria. Stria is a character that's evolved just in our storytelling process, probably the most.
A lot, weirdly enough.
Yes.
She's, again, one of those characters just like super cool, right? Like you see her, you're like, okay, this creature is really cool. And so she's a warrior. She's kind of a bit of a ranger, if you will.
A little fantasy in the year.
That's right.
Sci-fi
Just a little dash of ranger. But she is, her people are called Sand Sleepers. And we're going to find out all about them in season 1. That's one of the, I don't want to give too much away here, but I'm just going to say
we meet them,
and I'm not telling them to say it, but she's super cool. I really can't tell you too much more about her because I don't want to. I don't want to give away too many secrets. She's
kind of tied up in some cool stuff.
Yes. I will say Stria plays a very pivotal, vital role in this first season in helping Rake find out and discover who he is. And and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to give it away.
I do appreciate like the contrast of the Mechno-hive, and then I guess what she is in terms of like her people, and like what they are in terms of Zeden and how
Zeden is the planet, by the way.
How they sort of like interact with that sort of thing. I don't know. I feel like we're being super.
Yeah, I know it's kind of,
but it's like which is kind of exciting. But like you have the Mechno-hive that is almost wanting to like take over this planet, and then you have Stria and her people that are wanting to be in like harmony with it. And so it's a very stark contrast with those two.
It's a very yin and yang,
yes,
good and evil kind of a thing,
which is really, really cool. Like there's and I guess like with Rake's journey, having been like brought up in the Mechno-hive, and then you have him meeting Stria and all of that, you have these very stark upbringings, and so like that's really, really interesting to me in terms of like how he is going to evolve as a character in terms of how he was brought up, but how like these people that are native to this planet, and in terms of like other people that were brought to this planet and kind of are overtaking it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. One thing with Rake and dealing with Stria, Rake is kind of becomes, he starts with very much, in the Mechno-hive, all that stuff. And he kind of becomes a student of life where he learns from Dunebot and Sparky. He learns levity. He learns, how to make a joke, laugh, how to make a joke.
Even his jokes don't really hit that well.
right. It's he needs work, but with Stria, she's a different kind of teacher, like Sean was saying. More in the realm of the natural worlds of Zeden, which is cool because again, the Sand Sleepers and where she belongs, they're very in tune with the planet. Yeah, and then I guess our next dude.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, that's a good segue. Screwloose Joe. Joe. We often define him as a rogue. What is it? A rogue? We've called him a desert wizard, but we want to stay away from wizard.
A heat-crazed dune wizard is what we.
Yeah, heat-crazed dune wizard. But he doesn't possess any powers per se as a wizard might. But he's a very wise old soul, despite his craziness. He kind of goes in and out of sanity a little bit. Like he's there, but he's been out in the desert for a long time by himself, talking to rocks.
Yeah.
But his best friends happen to be Dunebot and Sparky. Yeah. And so they kind of all discover each other at the same time, Rake, Dunebot and Sparky, and Screwloose. And so there's some bonding that happens there, and they're become pretty good friends. And Screwloose he's well connected, and there's more to him than meets the eye for sure. Yeah. And I think that under the layers of this crazy facade lies this very rich character that again kind of unfolds as we move along in the seasons of Axiom.
Yeah, it's kind of a slow burner character, I would say, with his story.
Yeah.
Which is, make him interesting.
Yeah.
He's great because he's almost like a secret Obi-Wan Kenobi.
A little bit.
Like he was Obi-Wan and obviously Star Wars. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Yeah, like I've heard of that.
He's definitely like, immediately he's kind of like, okay, this guy's the sage, but with Screwloose, he's kind of this like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, I don't know but amongst the craziness and the chaos, there are nuggets of truth in him, which I feel like makes him like way more interesting and way more like there's way more depth to him than just like a Gandalf or an Obi-Wan sort of character.
And honestly, like we'll learn a lot more about him as we move along in the seasons, but we can't do that without you. And we need your support by going to angel.com/Axiom. Did I do it?
Oh my gosh! Like
where you right?
I love that.
That's how I
well, like I think he's such a pivotal part of Rake's journey.
Yeah.
But in terms of like it's not well defined, and like there is definitely things in Rake's past that are tied to Screwloose, but not only just Screwloose, but like what Screwloose is a part of.
Yeah.
And so that's
we should leave it there though. Let's not. So you're giving too much. Okay. Let's talk about bad guys, because we can't have good guys without bad guys.
That's very true.
We got to have both sides of that coin. So our bad guys are real bad.
They're so
there's
bad?
No cookie coating it. And I kind of think we need to start off with the main big bad, which is the Mechno-hive. The Mechno-hive is this hive mind.
It's a big thing.
Sentient thing of bots. It's all bots.
Yep.
Talk about
I mean, this was 100% Coben.
Yeah, this is where Coben
I'm
can
gonna
speak.
try to take the keys, my friend, and drive very carefully with your car. The Mechno-hive is, I'm trying to think his words, but I mean, it is literally any robot that inhabits Zeden. And it's a strange thing because it's a virus, so it has infected all of these robotic things, all of these beings of, anything from the biggest crazy, construction bot to the tiniest little janitorial little, mop bot or something.
Yeah.
It's all the Mechno-hive. And this entity can see through every eye, the cities that are made from the Mechno-hive also are alive as well. So it's like this almost impossible enemy that we start out with. We're just like, it is everything.
Yep.
It is, it's all around our characters in the world. It is the main thing that is hunting out any of the organics that are left out there in the robotic lands. I'll leave it with that. But
that's great. You did good.
Yeah,
good. Coben will be proud.
Thanks.
I think with the exception of a select minute few bots that are kind of off the grid, if you will.
Yep.
Jimbot and Sparky being two of those, or one of them, however you look at it.
True.
They're the Mechno-hive is super menacing, and they are the ones responsible for bringing Rake into their fold. Basically, there are Egyptians in the story. If we're going to do parallels between that and Exodus,
totally.
Rake gets taken as a baby by this this general. His name's Shogun Sin, and Shogun Sin is he's a bad dude. He's
that guy.
He's got a lot of layers to him.
Yes.
But he is a bad dude for sure, and he kind of becomes somewhat of a surrogate father to Rake.
Yep.
So he raises him and teaches him the ways of the Mechno-hive.
Right.
I think Shogun has been another one of those characters that has evolved over the years and has become much more of a developed character.
I was gonna say I think he's also become a quick favorite too, because kind of like Stria, he's went through all sorts of transformations in his character and his story, and I mean where we landed with him, I think is going to be a wonderful kind of representation of what he means, the kind of what he symbolizes, which is really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, very cryptic, folks.
Yeah, I know. This is all stuff we don't want to give away, guys.
Sorry.
Do you want to say anything else about Shogun, or you go to Dr. Banjo?
I mean, Shogun, to me, is really, really great because I think just the cards that we're kind of holding back in terms of who he is, and just a bigger picture of Rake's journey and who he is as well is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know,
there's not much more we can say.
It's very,
it's cool.
and you don't want to give too much away in terms of that, but I really do enjoy the parallels with Rake and the Moses story, but also Sin and kind of who he is and being that father figure, but also kind of still being really, really hard on Rake.
Yeah.
He's like master apprentice at the same time as father son.
Yeah.
Which it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. And then there's Dr. Bantam, who's just plain crazy. He's a genius, but crazy genius. Our inspirations that we pulled from are like Igor, right?
Yeah,
and
he's
Dr. Frankenstein.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Body is
he's a floating head that also has all these various weird robotic arms. He has become he has been fully assimilated into the hive.
Yeah. I guess we could talk about cyborgs.
Yeah,
He's responsible for those said cyborgs.
It's correct. He is responsible for the cyborgs, and so that is part of his main MO. His main task is to assimilate organics into cyborg class if they deserve it, if they are loyal to the Mechno-hive.
Right. It's kind of their servience, if that's the word. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you have a basic equation of how this works for cyborgs, or how they're made or brought into the fold for the hive.
Yeah.
You're either found, or you're sort of like Rake, sort of a found apprentice of, like, you have promise.
Yeah.
You can do well for the hive, and what you do to become a cyborg, obviously you lose something. You lose some
something.
You lose a leg, arm, something.
People ask, why does Rake have a claw leg? Well,
right.
that's a little hint. That's a little hint.
Your ticket in to the hive.
That's right.
So Dr. Bantam.
Yeah, Dr. Bantam, not Mr. Bantam.
He's
Dr.
your
Bantam.
guy for that. So.
Cool. Well, this brings us to the part of this show which I'm really excited about. We're going to share with you a brand new video that we created. This is kind of talks about the history. I think it's a good segue because we're going to talk about the world next.
Yeah.
I know we're kind of pushing our time here, but I'd like to dive into the world. Before we do that, we're going to set it up with this video that talks about the history of our world, which is called Zeden, and shows you where it started and brings you all the way up to where we are today in Rake's story. So can we shut up?
Roll camera.
Our people came here from the stars. Desperate for a home, Zeden was once an untouched paradise. Using their advanced technology and robots, they turned Zeden into that home, and for a time, things were good.
Do we restart the Zoom?
But something happened to the robots.
Yeah, try restarting the Zoom.
They started thinking for themselves. Like a virus.
Are you hearing audio
they
okay here, or is
spread
it
across the
pretty bad?
planet, linking every robot to a single mind. They became what we now know as the Mechno-hive. This evil brood consumed every resource in its path, hungry for energy to fuel its survival. Eventually, the Mechno-hive discovered limitless power flowing from the heart of the planet, the Axiom. In an effort to protect the Axiom, the organics waged war against the Mechno-hive, but its forces had grown too strong. In the final battle, the Axiom was destroyed.
Are we going?
Its pieces scattered
check the
to the far corners of the planet. Our people lost. Now,
we can hear you.
What's left of us are forced to serve the Mechno-hive as it endlessly searches for the lost fragments.
She doesn't have the camera anymore. She doesn't have the wide camera. Okay. All right. We were super excited about that piece. Sorry, guys, we lost one of our cameras again, but we're going to get this right next week, promise.
Still new.
Still new. This is all new things. Anyway, now, I mean, that to us, we were really excited about doing. I'm going to back this up, see if we can get all three of us in here. Maybe. There's Sean.
We're there. We see shoulders. We see shoulders.
So yeah, there we go. There it is. It's adorable. So yeah, that piece that you just saw was something that we have been working on for a while. We were really excited to release that. Yeah. Again, pulling from different inspirations of things that we've seen. The hieroglyphics from Prince of Egypt. How they show that story and that opens that story. We just were like, man, that's really cool. What if we did our own version of that?
Right.
What would that look like in our world? What would our ancient temple area look like in these, hieroglyphic kind of illustrations? And so
even the beginning of like Lord of the Rings,
yeah,
like it's kind of gives you just a sense of like this is where we're at.
Yeah.
This
It's
is
changing.
this is our world. This is kind of where we pick up, and this is where the organics are. This is where the robots are, and I love it because it's very mysterious, but it also kind of is informative at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And you kind of pick up in that world and not have to really know everything for like right down to the dot, but like it at least gives you enough information to where you know where you are.
Yeah. So I mean, like going back to the beginning, the video hit on how, Zeden was this kind of paradise,
Hence the name. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't stretch too far on that one.
yeah.
Eden with an
Zeden
X.
sounds kind of like Eden, but
Genius
but
work,
it's
I know.
Zeden with an X. Anyway, but this planet, it was at one time a paradise of sorts, and through the infection, if you will, or evil dichotomy, what happened there with the bots, they overtook everything and it spread like a virus. I don't want to be redundant here, but that's kind of where our setting takes place now. They are just on this mission, the Mechno-hive. I say the Mechno-hive is on this mission to overtake the planet and overthrow everything and make everything work for the hive.
Yeah.
And if you're quote unquote organic or anything other than the hive, it will try to assimilate you into its
use you in some way.
Its web.
Yeah. I think another thing to add to that, it's the thing it was after. At first it started with resources of the planet, of paradise, if you will, but eventually found the one thing that could actually sustain it, which was the Axiom, which is very much an important thing in our story. Once this war broke out between the organics and the machines, and the Axiom was destroyed. That is now kind of in the present day. The quest for both sides of this coin is to find those pieces. Whoever finds them, obviously is in more power than the other.
Right.
So.
Yep. So that's a great setup to like where we are with Rake, and Rake at the beginning of season 1 is going to be tested and tried in this capacity of helping Mechno-hive and helping them gain these.
Starts on the wrong team.
That's right. Gain these crystals, and he quickly learns that this is not where he wants to be. But they are, in terms of an oppressive force, the Mechno-hive is the worst of the worst. They are wanting to control everybody and anything on the planet. Yeah. And that's their main mission, and they will stop it at nothing to make that the case.
Looks like we're seeing little snapshots of like Power City, which is an interesting setting where this is essentially where the hub or the HQ.
Oh, this image in particular. This is that last one is there. We were that right there, Garrett. Thank you. When we've been developing the story, a lot of this when we kind of landed on this inspiration of what if we were to build this more in like the Mechno-hive was like our Egyptians. I mean that did evolve over time. It was not the initial thought, but we thought, man, this is more and more the story of Moses.
Really works.
And I think this could really work. And so this image that you see here is kind of an early concept of what this could look like with the hive and this idea of this pyramid. And again, I don't want to give too much away what this particular image is. We'll dive more into it, but let's just say that this is essentially the ground zero. This is our central hub of the hive, and its servants.
I like the contradiction, or I guess the parallels between the Mechno-hive's version of perfection versus like what the organics version of, not necessarily perfection, but like just life.
Yeah, sure.
Sort of things like which is really, really interesting in terms of like man versus machine,
Right.
which is like, I think a very timeless like storyline.
Yeah,
If
totally.
you're talking about Terminator, if you're talking about The Matrix,
Right.
Like what necessarily is like this version of like this is harmony versus this is harmony.
Yeah.
Which is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where our story is and picks up, and we try to elaborate more on.
Yeah, I think that video that we just saw is definitely more of like this Genesis story. You know what I mean? But speaking of Genesis, we're talking about some of the biblical influences here. We already have talked a lot about the parallels between Moses and our main character. We want to be really clear. Like, this isn't necessarily a Bible story. This is a sci-fi adventure story. But it is strongly influenced by these same themes. It's by, and that's where we're not going to deny that at all. We're going to, say we very much so intended it that way.
Yeah.
And so, we talk about Prince of Egypt a lot in our conversations, and, parallels and influences there. And I think, like even this world, this desert area that we start our show off in, we call it the robotic lands. And the robotic lands, it's kind of this wasteland, if you will. The only things that are surviving out there are these crazy beasts that you'll find later on. Again, pulling from inspirations that we love so much, like Dune.
Sure.
And what are some other things that we like?
Dune's a huge one for the whole desert, vibe, or Tatooine. Just playing around with, how Star Wars, one of the great pillars of Star Wars story is the weird creatures our characters come across, whether it's a second or they run across the screen and that's it, or they're getting pursued by one, or, so it's kind of our playground for, is there robots? Is there creatures? What else is out there? You know? So it's just kind of a fun, literal sandbox of. We have some fun stuff in store for it.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's going to be really cool. I think that kind of wraps up our characters and world, guys. Again, like you guys all know, this is a dream for us to come true, and we are expressing interest right now. So again, that link is angel.com/Axiom. Please, if you're interested in supporting this and being a part of it and being and investing, please respond there and
express interest.
Please, because we would love to make this show a reality. And we're obviously super jazzed about it, and we'll continue to kind of tell you guys more and more about the story. And I think the next episode, we're going to talk more about our influences, a little heavier. Hopefully Coben will be back and fully operational by that point, like the Death Star.
Wow.
But full circle. But we miss you this time around, Coben, if you're tuning in. We'll hope to have you next time, and you can definitely help us with that, contributing to your ideas and whatnot. But at this point, I'd love to open it up some questions, and maybe even circle back around to the first question I asked you. What are some shows and what are some things that you guys remember growing up that you're like, okay, this is cool. Like, we really into this. Let's see. What are we going to talk about here?
Coben's.
Oh, here we go. Who is each of your favorites character and why? Ooh.
Oh, man.
That's a big question.
That is a good question.
For me, I'm just going to be real boring and say Rake, because I think I've drawn that kid's face billions of times at this point, and just, all kinds of ideas for him and what he's going to go through in this story. And that's a boring answer, but
No, that's a good one. Rake is the hero.
I know.
For me, I think it's Sin.
Mm-hmm.
Sin's got a lot going on that we're going to find more and more about.
Yeah. He's real cool.
He's real cool. He's a cool dude, even though he's
bad, but he's cool.
real bad.
I think for me, it's like, obviously Rake is kind of the top.
Yeah.
But also there is definitely Sin in terms of like, I think we more so probably find out about who he is later.
Sure.
In terms of like like face value when we meet him,
Right.
which is really interesting to me because like this guy is just he seems horrible. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Right.
And I feel like more so in terms of like flashbacks
Mhm.
and maybe memories, like Rake, I think starts to realize who Sin actually was,
Yeah.
and like in terms of his life,
Sure.
which is really, really interesting to me.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
by far a very complex dude.
Very
He is.
complex,
He
and
is.
trying to navigate and balance everything that's kind of going on in terms of this world,
Yeah.
and what's been created and what's been kind of like delved out to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Rake because I mean, obviously he's the main character, but I think that there is such an interesting like we talked about last week, a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Like seeing like this is your world, and this is how you sort of are operating within that world. But then when you get deeper into that world, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is horrible.
Yeah.
And having to choose having to really, really choose like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like this is not, even though this is how this works, I choose to kind of go against the grain, which is very difficult for a hero to do.
Sure.
And so I think that that's what makes Rake so appealing in that way, because
it's like an impossible task.
Exactly.
Especially in this world.
Exactly.
Set in this world. Anyway.
Exactly. Like I mean, that's, I think what we really gleaned from Moses and even just the Prince of Egypt was like, there's that moment where he's like, he's fine. He's like, he's
all good.
Yeah. He's like, this is great. Like whatever. And then they're like, hey, you're an architect of Egypt. And he gets down there and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is horrible.
Right.
And that's where I feel like Rake really sort of gleams from those parallels. And I'm really interested to see like where that journey goes.
Yeah. I agree.
As I am.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Let's
see if there's any more. Right. Is Rake a human? And how did you come up with the name Rake?
Right. Ooh. So, I mean, he is very much human, I would say. Yeah. They're all under this. We kind of take a Star Trek approach where in our story, most organics are not just humans. They're all sorts of aliens. So we can have some fun. You know, we have this whole sandbox of weird creatures that we can come up with. But again, all under the guise of organic. I'm trying to remember how I came up with his name. I don't have some funny quip for this. I think it was literally, I was kind of, just, you know,
Blake.
He's Blake. Yeah. He started out as an outlaw. I know, I can tell you this much. And from there, I was just like, okay, well, I always like to like choose names that are, you know, they're somewhat familiar, but it could have a sci-fi feel.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was like, people know what a rake is. I mean, it's not some cool thing, but I was just like,
but as a name, it's cool.
As an edge to it.
It really is.
And that's kind of what, you know, when I created, you know, his character and I was working on like, oh, he has this robotic leg with these talons, these like sharp thing, like he has an edge to him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's something that literally sounds like has like a sharpness? And
Rake.
That might be my best answer for that.
Well, it's a good answer.
There you go.
More than I could have come up with,
So,
that's for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, anybody else? Love the sound music design. Have you guys chosen a composer yet? Tron, Daft Punk vibes.
Thank you.
What are these? What's Tron?
Yeah.
I gotta know what that is.
So near and dear to us here, guys. Yeah, we love. Oh yeah, Andrew hyped us as the cutoff there.
Oh, nice.
So he's hyped. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Carlos, thank you. Yeah, I honestly like. Tron is an awesome. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why we haven't brought that up yet. That's perfect. We love Tron, both the original and the reboot
and the cartoon.
And the cartoon almost maybe most.
You guys, if you haven't watched the cartoon yet, watch that cartoon.
Yeah.
It came out how many years ago? Like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it was kind of this like,
oh my gosh, it's so cool.
The same time the movie was coming out, there was this like amazing series that was coming out, and it was just I mean, if not as good as the movie,
Right.
Like it was amazing.
It's so good.
Storyline.
It's the artwork and the style of animation is so cool.
So cool.
It's great. And in terms of Daft Punk, yes, like that's we're putting together the ideas in head. Do we have a composer? We actually are in the works of talking to a couple different composers right now, and we have some. When we have it all locked in, we'll be excited to share
Some
that
of the
with
credits.
you guys too.
Yeah,
Because it's cool. It's really cool. I mean, Daft Punk is definitely inspiration for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the list of things we'd like to hear in the soundtrack. And, and moving forward,
We definitely reference Tron and Stranger Things in terms of like soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like it's just
this 80s
Yes.
synths.
there was, I mean, literally today as we're
It's almost enough.
finishing music
Yeah.
for the temple scene, it was like it was a couple of tracks, and one was very much in that vein, and we were just kind of trying to decide, like, they're both amazing tracks, but like one of them just felt like this is the direction that we want to go with Axiom, and versus the other one. And not that it was like a horrible track, it was just
it was hard, actually, really hard.
It was like, oh gosh, they both.
But this one sounds more Daft Punk.
And it was like very synthy, and it was really amazing. And it, like, there was a lot of elements that kind of played into it with like the voiceover, the visuals, and things like that. Which, thank you, Katie Cologne, it was just an amazing voiceover talent and friend. And it was, I don't know, like we had a lot of tough decisions in that. And music, for some reason, I feel like it's always
tough.
It's super tough.
It kind of locks it in, and that's the last little part of it. And you're like, all right, is this
yes, because there's a feeling you've created these visuals, you've created this aesthetic, and you want something that matches and really like emphasizes what you've created.
That's
it's hard.
I think we have time for one more question. Let's see, what do we got?
Warshar, cool name.
Oh yeah, hello.
That's the coolest name ever.
Some ways you plan to make yourself. Oh boy, I can't read that.
It's tiny.
Hidden behind this.
Some ways.
Hang on. Sorry, we're trying to read it right now. There's this thing in the way. There we go. Series watchable.
Some ways you plan to.
My lasting legacy.
Oh man, that's great.
Well, we do have, I mean, kind of some stuff we were teasing and talking about with characters. I mean, our characters go through some intense journeys.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a bit of transformations throughout our story. I mean, this is a story as in not just season one, but the whole thing. There's a lot.
This is a great question.
This is really good.
Because like here's the thing, like we want to make a show that we would want to watch, we want our kids to watch, and that we'd want to watch repeatedly, to be honest. Like, and we have, again, this is the conversations that we have in this office all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is like, yes, we want to have cool artwork. Yes, we want to have these awesome action sequences. Yes, we want to like show this sweeping world, but at the core of it, we really want to tell a compelling story. And we want to tell a story that can resonate with not just kids, but adults, families,
right?
Something that we can all walk away getting something out of that's, meaningful.
Right. So. Yeah. I mean, it's something we all talk about too. It's like with most kids' cartoons, there's a few out there that do an amazing job of having this like this truly epic story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, the other flip side of it is very episodic, which is great. There's some really good examples of that. But something we are all fans of is like, we love Lord of the Rings. We love Star Wars. We love these epics. And this is our version of that. And, there's moments where we, we'll watch something and we're like, you know what? We didn't really like how that played out. And you know what? Let's direct all of that and try to figure out something in Axiom that we're like, we want to maybe tackle that subject, but do it our way or do it better or what we thought was better. Yeah. It's a cool sounding board. What a weird thing to say, but it's like a sounding board to like stuff we're watching and intaking for our creative, fuel.
Yeah. We say that all the time. We're like, how do we make this better? How would we have made that episode of whatever?
And Sean's kind of the one who champions that notion of like, well, let's just focus it into Axiom. Like, let's not sit here and complain. Like, sure, we can, but then let's actually be productive.
I love it. I love it because with all the stuff that we love / hate, it's one of those things where we were like, okay, that Star Wars like movie was horrible. Like, how do names? How do we take? Yeah, like we're not going to say anything, but how do we take that and fuel it into Axiom?
Yeah,
right. And I'm that question is amazing. Yeah, because I rate movies and shows in terms of like, am I going to watch that again and enjoy it?
Right. Yeah. In the olden days, would you buy the DVD?
Exactly. That's like, am I going to download that and watch it a million times?
Right.
And like, that's what I want with Axiom.
Striving for
like, that's what I want with like people that watch it once and be like, this is great. I'm going to go back and I'm going to start from the beginning and watch it all over again. And I'm going to pick out those things that I didn't see the first time.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
I didn't like that character arc that I didn't necessarily like take a whole lot from. I'm seeing way more depth into it now.
See a different light.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's every sort of filmmaker or creative, like their passion. Like you want to create layers where it's not just like, okay, I've watched this once and that's great. Yeah. You want to create something where people go back to it and see something that maybe they didn't see before.
Right.
And I honestly like, not to whatever, but I do think there are layers to the Axiom Chronicles that are very special. Yeah. That I think that could definitely reach beyond like just like a one viewing sort of thing. And like that's what I love about it. Yeah. Like, and that's what I think we're so passionate about. It's not just something that we're just like, we want to create something because we want to create something. We want to create something because we are so passionate about it.
Yeah. And I'm going to say for all of us, it's, about the show we want our kids to watch,
Yeah.
That's a huge part of it.
I think that's part of the legacy is like passing this on to the next generation and like watching it with them. I think that's a big part of it. So we're at the 1 hour mark, guys. We should probably wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. We hope that you'll be part of this project. Remember, you can go to angel.com/Axiom to express interest. Be sure to stay caught up on all the latest project updates by following us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And along with any exciting updates with the show, please share it with your friends and family.
Yeah. Also, real quick, just so you guys know, like we're part of a family right now. Like the Angel Studios is like the super awesome network. There is another like animated series going on called Gabriel and the Guardians. Like they have some super awesome animation. Like the stuff that we've seen, it's like, wow. Like we're like, not that we just like, hey, like, well, I mean, honestly, like if you have to choose between one or the other. No, it's not a competition. But like guys,
both, Sean. Both.
Guys, like literally, like if you guys look at these two things and like, but those guys are going on and they've got some great animation and story going on. So check those guys out. Like they are doing some really, really awesome stuff. Yeah. But all that to say.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, guys. Yeah. I think we might rerun the temple animation just to close this out.
Please watch that again.
But thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for updates and the next live stream.
Cool. See you guys later.
Our people came here from the stars. Desperate for a home, Zeden was once an untouched paradise. Using their advanced technology and robots, they turned Zeden into that home, and for a time, things were good. But something happened to the robots. They started thinking for themselves. Like a virus, they spread across the planet, linking every robot to a single mind. They became what we now know as the Mechno-hive. This evil brood consumed every resource in its path, hungry for energy to fuel its survival. Eventually, the Mechno-hive discovered limitless power flowing from the heart of the planet, the Axiom. In an effort to protect the Axiom, the organics waged war against the Mechno-hive, but its forces had grown too strong. In the final battle, the Axiom was destroyed, its pieces scattered to the far corners of the planet. Our people lost. Now, what's left of us are forced to serve the Mechno-hive as it endlessly searches for the lost fragments of the Axiom.